Good afternoon. Like to open up the City of Chowchilla City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024. Could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Ahmed,
Here.
Mr. Berrigan,
Here.
Mr. Trost, and Mr. Smith.
Here.
And for the record, Mr. Chavez will arrive late and his time will be noted in the minutes.
Thank you. Consideration of approval of agenda. Does anyone have any additions or deletions?
There are none.
None. Seeing none, we'll move on to public address closed session.
You gotta have a motion. A motion for the,
Motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda.
make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Get a roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Ahmed,
Yes.
Mr. Berrigan,
Yes.
Mr. Trost,
Yes.
and Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Motion passed with Mr. Chavez absent.
We'll move on to public address closed session. This time is reserved for members of the audience to address the city council on items listed on the closed session agenda only. It is recommended that speakers limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes each. Do we have any comments?
Not at this time.
One from council?
Nope.
Okay. With that, we'll move to closed session. Item number 1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D, 2 or 3, number of cases 1. Number 2, Government Code Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of section 54956.9 of the Government Code. 1 case, threat of litigation from attorney Scott Rafferty. See attached letter. With that, we'll move into closed session. Good afternoon, everyone. Like to open the meeting back up. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please stay standing for the invocation. I'd like to call up my friend and pastor.
Yeah.
Pastor Logan.
All right, let's pray. Lord God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this country. We thank you for what a privilege it is to live in these times. And God, we just ask for your blessing on this meeting. We pray for wisdom and discernment from our leaders, and that you would provide wisdom from heaven. Thank you. Thank you for a community that is safe, a community that cares about about the community. And God, we just ask that you would get glory here and that you would just provide grace upon grace. We love you, Lord. We give you all the glory. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, presentation workshop, section 1.1, Chowchilla Fairgrounds parking lot proposal. Supervisor Rogers.
So while he's coming up, can I just say there's nothing to report from closed session?
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, good to be before you on a very worthy project. For some time, the Chowchilla Fairgrounds parking and basically their entire grounds covered with asphalt, it's been deteriorating for some time. And a couple of years ago, back, I think it was 2018, I put about $6,000 of my personal funds into trying to make a difference there, and just made a little dent. And even that's falling apart now because it's the substructure of the parking is so bad. So we went over there with our crews and our estimators and engineers, and they gave us an estimate of what it would take to do 50,000 square feet, which is the bulk of the grounds. The estimate came to $90,000 for 50,000 square feet. That's about $1.90, I think, a square foot, which is a good, excellent price. You can't pour concrete or get asphalt or you can't even buy asphalt for that much money now. And so what I've done is I've gone around to different individuals and different organizations and tried to raise the funds to do this. I have a newly designated fund in the county that's specific to my district. It's $10,000 per year, and I can use it for it's like a slush fund for projects that I feel like are worthy and need to be taken care of. I have dedicated my first 2 years of funding to this project because I feel of all the things that I could do for the community, the fairgrounds is used by everybody. It's something that everybody uses. Our kids use it. The FFA, the 4-H, and the different equestrian events. And I feel like it's also an economic engine. We've been pursuing grants for the fairgrounds to rebuild the hall that burned down. We also wanted to install RV hookups for about 80 hookups for RVs so that it could be used as an emergency location for CAL FIRE. There's a lot of things that can happen with the fairgrounds that would be an economic engine for Chowchilla. And I'm starting with the look of the place. And I would love to continue to pursue those things. We're continuing to pursue the grants. But right now I'm focused on that asphalt and getting that fixed out there. So at this point, I have $20,000 of the 90. The fairgrounds themselves have also dedicated about 10 and I think maybe possibly more. I'm not real sure what the deal is on that. They were raising funds the night of the fair dinner to see what could happen with that. We were hoping to shoot for a repaving, tear up and repaving before the fair. That's just not going to happen now, given the time involved. We don't want to jeopardize the fair at all. So the project would commence once we raise the needed funds to get the job done. And what I'm here to do tonight is to ask you for your help. First of all, if you know of any entity or someone that would consider donating a small amount of money, a large amount of money to the project, that would be apropos. It would be very important. I know that I just walked into the bank a couple of days ago and I mentioned it to Dossie and she said, well, send me a letter and I'm going to send it to Tri-Counties and we're going to actually get some funding for that. So, you know, there is community support for something like this from various sources. And you guys know everybody and you go out there and you talk, and this is something we can work on together and get it done. Not only that, if you have any amount of money at all that you might be willing to give to the project and help the project along, that would be helpful as well. As far as the city goes, if you know of funding sources or a funding that you do have that is available to put into that pot, that would be great. But in the end, we'd love for the fairgrounds to look like the city looks. The city is looking better and better all the time. You guys are doing a great job. We've got businesses popping up everywhere. We've got good things happening in Chowchilla, and I want to see that fairgrounds looking like good things are happening. And I'd love to have you partner with me. So thank you for your time. And I'll keep you posted on what's coming in. We're still working on other sources, and I'm texting people and hoping for private donations as well as public donations. We have partnered with the fairgrounds to manage the project, and we're not sure exactly how the funding will swing through, but at some point when we get enough money, either the road crews will do the project, which is the bid that we had, or if we find a contractor that's willing to donate, even do a better job, donating funds and what have you, then we'll go that route. But we're open to anything that might happen. If you have any questions, I'm glad to answer them.
Dave, on that paving project, that'll be like an overlay inside the fairgrounds itself?
No, it would be actually a tear up and rebuild. See, a complete tear up and rebuild. What I spoke of earlier, the money that I spent personally out there, that was an overlay. And we got the front entry kind of cleaned up and looking good, but it just didn't last. And the reason it didn't last is because the foundation is no good anymore. It's just, Jason could attest to when you look at something like that, it's so cracked up, the infrastructure is just no good anymore. And what we would like to do is take the material that's there, grind it up, maybe put it back down, and then repave over that 2.5 inches. So it'd be a pretty nice facility once all that's done. I have spoken to Rotary so far, and I've spoken to a number of different individuals in the community, and we haven't heard yet, but I know there is a wish in the wind for everybody. They want to see something done out there. Everybody does. So
Is that the interior and the parking lot, or?
no, that's not the big, we're not talking about the big parking lot as you go in the front there. We're not
Yeah.
talking about that part at all. We're talking about the interior of the
All the
fairgrounds.
blacktop, okay.
Yeah, all of that blacktop that food vendors and what leads to the Rotary beer gardens and the VFW beer gardens and different the ag boosters areas, those kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions? Well, I want to thank you for your time and just say, keep up the good work. Really proud of our city, proud of what you're doing for it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, bear with me. I've been given a reading assignment today. So we have three proclamations to go over. So the first one is the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. Whereas emergencies that require police, fire, or emergency medical services can occur at any time. And whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who contact the City of Chowchilla's Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the City of Chowchilla have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of Chowchilla declares the week of April 14th through April 20th, 2024 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Chowchilla in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. So we wish them a belated, if I'm reading right, April 14th through 20th. We want to thank our dispatchers, our public service officers. Really appreciate their efforts they do. If you've never called 911, good for you. But if you've had to call them, they're very professional. They do an excellent job. Quick response time. I really appreciate everything that they do. Next. Proclamation designated the day of May 7th as National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Day. Whereas the United States and Congress and the President of the United States have designated the day of the annual National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Service as a day to honor firefighters and emergency services personnel who have sacrificed their lives to save others by lowering the American flag on all federal buildings to half staff. And whereas an average of 80 firefighters courageously make the ultimate sacrifice in the line of duty each year. And whereas firefighters and emergency services personnel play an essential role in the protection of lives and property in our local community. And whereas the National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Weekend marks the weekend following International Firefighters Day of 2024. And whereas it's a major importance that we increase our efforts to reduce deaths, injuries, and property losses from fire. Therefore, I, Kelly Smith, Mayor of the City of Chowchilla, now call upon all citizens of Chowchilla and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the day of May 7th, 2024, in recognition of the patriotic service and dedicated efforts of our fire and emergency services personnel by lowering American flags on all buildings to half staff. I respectfully encourage these same organizations, as well as the citizens of Chowchilla, to remember all fire and emergency personnel who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community, and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes by participating in Bells Across America for Fallen Firefighters. Toll a bell, pause for a moment of silence, or read a special message to honor the sacrifices of these public servants and their families. I encourage our citizens to honor fire and emergency services personnel, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to duties have rendered invaluable services to our community and its citizens. I encourage appropriate services and ceremonies in which all of our citizens may participate to honor fire and emergency services personnel, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to duties have rendered invaluable service to our community and its citizens. In witness, therefore, I hereto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Chowchilla to be affixed. Fred, you and your crew, fallen firefighters, also, we appreciate all of you guys. Proclamation in honor of National Peace Officers Week 2024. To recognize National Police Week 2024 and honor the services and sacrifice of those law enforcement officers killed in the line of duty while protecting our communities and safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in the communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Chowchilla Police Department. Whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, more than 23,000 law enforcement officers in the United States have made the ultimate sacrifice and been killed in the line of duty. Whereas the names of these dedicated public servants are engraved on the walls of the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. Whereas 556 new names of fallen heroes are being added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial this spring, including 224 officers killed in 2022 and 332 officers killed in previous years. Whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund's 34th Candlelight Vigil on the evening of May 11th, 2024. Whereas the Candlelight Vigil is part of the National Police Week, which will be observed this year, May 12th through the 18th. Whereas May 15th is designated a Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of all fallen officers and their families, and U.S. flags should be flown at half-staff. Therefore, be it resolved that the city of Chowchilla observe May 12th through the 18th, 2024 as National Police Week in Chowchilla, California, and publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in our community and communities across the nation. Jeff, your crew, and our fallen officers, give all of our thanks. Okay. Yes. Stuck. Jeff, I'll have you come get these two, please. Oh, yeah. Double important for Jeff, as his son is a public safety officer, so. So that one all has to come. Fred, want to come get this one? Thank you. And my son is a firefighter, so, well, yeah. Thank you. All right, we'll move into the public address. This time is reserved for members of the audience to address the city council on items of interest that are not on the agenda and that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. It is recommended that speakers limit their comments to no more than 3 minutes each, and it is requested that no comments be made during this period on items on the agenda. Speakers are not allowed to cede their public comment time. Members of the public who are joining the meeting via Zoom and would like to address the council on items on the agenda should follow the policy on page 3 of the agenda packet. The council is prohibited by law from taking any actions on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. No adverse conclusions should be drawn if the council does not respond to public comment at this time. Is there anyone wishing to address the council from the audience? You can come up.
Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Ahlam Sheikh, and I am a Palestinian American, a resident of Chowchilla for more than 20 years. I'm a registered nurse working with complex patient care. And above all, I'm a mother of 3 beautiful children. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. I'm here today to speak on what the community has addressed in the previous meetings in regards to the ceasefire resolution. We continue to plead for the city of Chowchilla to place the ceasefire resolution on the agenda for further discussion and voting. And please make note under the minutes section of this meeting and any time we address the council in the future that we are not a group of people asking for a ceasefire resolution, but in fact, we are residents of Chowchilla, and we'd like to be identified as so. As a nurse, I'm an advocate for my patients. I help them heal and I help them find comfort during their treatments. I also support and provide resources for the families that need it. Unlike the people of Gaza who have been under constant bombardment for 200 days now. The healthcare system in Gaza has been severely undermined as a result of the assault on its infrastructure. My patients' cry is heard, and we tend to their healthcare needs, whether physical, mental, or psychological, unlike the people of Gaza whose cry is silenced. The question has been posed, what does local government have to do with the foreign policy? Is Chowchilla not part of the state of California? Is California not an essential part of the United States? Is the US not sending our tax dollars to Israel? Are we not supplying them with the missiles? 70+ cities have passed resolutions by the end of January 2024. As of March 2024, resolutions have passed in over 100 localities, including the major cities of Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, Sacramento, San Francisco, as well as our neighboring cities of Madera and Kerman. Is a ceasefire resolution passed here in this city of Chowchilla going to change the world or have a huge direct influence on the international policy? It may or may not. But like Alderman Daniel LaSpada, First Ward Office in Chicago said, quote, but we vote with hope. We vote with solidarity. We vote to help people feel heard in a world of silence, end quote. We stand for babies and mothers, for sisters and brothers, and for fathers and daughters. We see them, we hear them. We know and feel for them, our family, our world family. Enough death. Today we say, not in our money and not with our money and not in our name. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak?
We do have somebody online. Lefty, you should be able to speak now.
Good evening, Council. At the last meeting, one of your members said they don't understand all the dynamics of what's happening in Gaza and suggesting it goes back 2,000 years, not just 75 years to my previous comment. This seems to only bring up a religious point of view rather than facts, which would be inaccurate to even mention, as the issues in Palestine only started when Zionists decided they wanted the land and things were put in motion in 1948, 75 years ago, with what is called the Nakba, a catastrophe. I urge the public to look into that if they want to educate themselves. Prior to this, Jews, Christians, Muslims lived side by side, sharing that land. When children are suffering, it's a human matter, and people of conscience everywhere should speak out in defense of children. There is no legal limitation on city councils from speaking out on national or international matters. Cities do so regularly throughout this country to make that their residents' voices are heard in Washington. Over 100 cities and towns have passed resolutions calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. 2 of them being Madera and Kerman, which are part of the Central Valley, as you've heard. This is a city issue because Chowchilla residents' tax dollars are directly funding the killing of innocent people. Let that sit in. There is a humanitarian crisis in Gaza right now. The crisis is being ignored and even denied by people, despite the overwhelming evidence, video evidence, from people on the ground there. World Kitchen founder Jose Andres declares Netanyahu's military deliberately targeted the 7th aid workers. They were targeted systematically, car by car, nonstop until everyone was dead. This is not a war against terrorism. It's a war against humanity itself. Those were his words. As a father of 5, I have to be a great leader starting in my home. However, nothing says I can't extend outside of my property line. I am thankful that I can still extend myself in helping where I can, such as the mentoring program I represent that pairs high school students or adults with little ones to make a huge difference in their lives, despite them not being their problem. I don't mind being used as a pawn if I can make a difference in someone's life. I will wrap up and end with these 2 quotes made by James Baldwin, an American writer and civil rights activist. James Baldwin said, "The children are always ours, every single one of them, all over the globe. And I am beginning to suspect that whoever is incapable of recognizing this may be incapable of morality." Baldwin also said, "Children have never been very good at listening to their elders, but they have never failed to imitate them." Please add the ceasefire resolution to your next meeting agenda to have further discussion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Nothing online.
Okay. All right, we'll go ahead and move to section 2, council and staff verbal reports. Council reports, I'll start with John.
I recently attended the legislative days in Sacramento. And that's it.
Mr. Trost.
Nothing to report other than attending the K-9 dinner, which was a great event.
Yes, all right. Ray?
I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Wasim?
Thank you. I also attended the legislation day over at the Sacramento along with the council member John Chavez, and where we discussed about the possibility of having funding for the hospital, Madera Hospital, and also the retail theft, homelessness, and public safety. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Along with Jeff, I too went to the K-9 dinner on Saturday night. Huge success, full house. Was a great evening. I hope they made a lot of money. And on Friday, myself and Mr. Trost attended the Athletic Foundation Golf Tournament. So it was good to see everybody out there. I think they had close to 100 golfers. And I think they did really well. Also, the town always comes together to support each other and whenever we have those fundraisers. So next we'll move on to the staff verbal reports, and we'll start with Stacy.
Gotta be smarter than the equipment you're working with. I have nothing to report.
Was that on tape, Carlos?
It is recorded, yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. Joanne?
Yeah, last week I attended the CALAC conference and that's all I have to report.
Thanks. How was the conference?
It was good. There's a lot of money out there for transportation. However, if we wanted to expand hours, we would have to hire additional staff. So
There's no money for that though, right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, is there? No.
Chief Palmer?
Good afternoon, Council, Mr. Mayor. Since we last met, officers calls for service 1,171. Our officers conducted 614 proactive stops, which resulted in 20 misdemeanor arrests, 6 felony arrests, 33 citations, Code enforcement's had over 60 calls for service, has taken 13 actions. I do want to thank the whole community that came out to the Canine Dinner. That was an amazing event. It's a huge fundraiser for our program. We appreciate that greatly. I want to thank Stacy for helping out with that. And just a quick comment on Measure N. We did purchase some cameras this year. I just want to give a quick story of how well it's worked. While we had a department head meeting today, we had one of our officers were called out to the park because of a suspicious male. The officers pulled up, contacted him, and left. Our dispatcher decided to put the camera on that subject, which is out at the public park. And while she was watching him after the officer left, he went into a garbage can, retrieved a gun. So the officers went back out there and were able to get the gun and narcotics from him. And it's a result of the cameras through Measure N and being able to have that capability. So I just wanted to give that quick story about how that works. And we're just good diligence on our dispatcher's behalf.
And we haven't had them very long. Yeah, it's paying off right away. That's awesome. Chief comments.
Yeah, it's a little cherry on top for telecommunications too. Mayor, council, not much to report. Should be able to, like I mentioned earlier, our last meeting, we should be able to wrap up by the end of April, our building expansion and renovation. And then I myself wasn't able to make it to the dinner, but I heard it went really well, and we'll see if they outperformed fire. That's all I have. Thank you.
It's a given.
Thanks, Fred. Jason.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. First, the urban runoff and pickleball court projects contractors are in the process of starting the projects. Expected completion for the urban runoff project is December, and expected completion of the pickleball courts project is late August. Caltrans will be having an open house meeting tomorrow night here in City Hall for the SR 233 Robertson Boulevard Cap M project from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. in order to receive comments from the public so that they can be incorporated into their design work. And lastly, at our last council meeting, a resident had a concern about truck parking near Palm Parkway and Robertson Boulevard. Per our municipal code, Public Works has installed new no parking signs in the area to address this issue and to help create better sightlines. Thank you.
Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. We are now beginning the kickoff meeting for the environmental impact report for the industrial specific plan. So that started next week. So we're hopefully to get that going soon. And so it's just a welcome to how that moving forward now. We did hold a pre-bid meeting for our on-call plan services this past week. The meeting was well attended. We did receive, and we continue to receive a lot of questions from a variety of different potential applicants or vendors that are looking to submit plan services proposals to the city council to consider, which we do plan on bringing to you guys on May 14th. Jack in the Box, they just received their approval for the building permit for the sign. So you'll start seeing that erected probably probably in June, with them opening for business in probably July of this year. I mentioned the sign because it's an 85-foot pylon sign. That's when you look right next to the freeway. So you'll see that as it starts to go up, you'll start to know that they get more closely ready to operate, open for operation. And then I was going to mention is Southfield Enterprises. They recently pulled 10 building permits for their sweat equity program. That basically is they are working with these homeowners to basically put in a certain amount of hours to basically put in the construction of the property. They have 21 lots out there, but they're going to start with 10 units first. And again, that kind of moving forward. So the process will take a little longer than usual for normal home construction, but they are the homeowners actually are working on the homes and actually putting in the nails with the hammer and whatnot. And so it was a nice program to see that moving forward in the community. And last, as I mentioned, we did get to hire a building permit technician this past week. She recently started. She does live within the city of Chowchilla, and she has kids that do play sports in the community. So I'm sure you'll be seeing her around. If you do have time to come by and say hi to her, you'll be welcome to do so. Thank you.
Mrs. Williams.
Good afternoon. I've just been meeting quite often with ClearGov on our new digital budget book and personnel budgeting software, which also leads me into working on next year's budget. And then I will be meeting with all the department heads starting next week to go over their budgets for next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pruitt, you're up. Oh, Carlos.
I thought, dang it.
Oh.
I thought I was in the clear.
Rod threw you under the bus, sorry.
We have begun our server migrations. Most of them are all going really well. There are some that were running into some trouble, but this is all to be expected. So we're finally at that point, and hopefully we'll be done by the beginning of next month. So that's what we have.
Yeah, good news. Mr. Pruitt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Not a lot to report because I was on vacation last week in Reno and Dallas. So prior week did have a meeting on Measure T. I know today was supposed to be the final steering committee meeting. Still trying to go over the final proposal of how the funds will be allocated. And then that will be moving forward, be presented to the MCTC/MCTA board, and then potentially moving forward to the county for approval. I had a meeting with High Speed Rail, State Water Resources Control Board, and Jason regards to the Fairmead project and laying out some 30, 60, 90 day type deliverables and what's going to happen on the reimbursement side of reimbursement agreement with High Speed Rail. So we're trying to get that finalized, and hopefully, according to State Water Resources Control Board, that process should be approved here for the initial funding. I guess there's a final budget that has to be submitted later, but the initial funding should be coming up here pretty soon. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move to section 3, consent calendar. All items listed under consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. For discussion of any consent item, it is made as part of the regular agenda at the request of any member of the city council or any person in the audience. Anyone in the audience have anything?
Not at this time.
Anybody from council? I'm looking for a motion to approve as presented.
Move to approve.
I will second.
Get a roll call, please.
Mr. Trost?
Yes.
Mr. Berrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes,
Motion passed unanimously.
thank you. Next item, California Voting Rights Act. Presentation from demographer regarding the transition to by-district elections. Ms. Lerner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So currently, city council members are elected under an at-large method of election. On March 21st of this year, the council took action to begin the hearing process to transition to by-district elections. In commencing that process, the council is required to hold two initial public hearings. The first was held on April 9th, following a presentation from NDC, specifically Jeff Tilton. The next hearing is going to occur this evening or this afternoon, following the presentation from NDC and Jeff Tilton. So I will turn it over to your demographer.
Thank you.
Hey, hello again, everyone. As was mentioned, this is the second public hearing before we start looking at draft plans. And see, I can drive here. And for those who were not present at the last public hearing, We go through essentially the same presentation as was during the first public hearing. We're looking to move from at-large elections in the city of Chowchilla to a by-district election process. And the California Voting Rights Act was written to specifically encourage by-district elections, and that's what the process that we're going through here. With respect to the California Voting Rights Act, under the Federal Voting Rights Act, a jurisdiction must fail 4 factual tests before it's in violation of the federal law. California makes it a lot easier for plaintiffs. They strike 2 of the 4 Gingles tests. So liability is now determined only by the presence of racially polarized voting and the dilution of the protected classes voting strength. And so moving to by-district election will help with that. The impact of the California Voting Rights Act has rippled throughout the state of California. You can see that over 300 school districts have converted all these jurisdictions, community college districts, cities, board of supervisors, and special districts like healthcare districts, fire districts, etc. However, those jurisdictions who have decided to contest a demand letter from a plaintiff have discovered that it becomes a pricey endeavor. No jurisdiction has been successful in defending not moving to CDRA. And the prices are the prices. The figures on the right-hand side don't take into account the local jurisdiction's resources that were expended for that, or legal counsel or demographer services. So a lot of money has been expended. So here we are again. This is second public hearing of pre-draft maps. The first one was April 9th. And then after tonight, draft maps can start being drawn. And we will have draft maps posted to the city's website by May 7th. And for the May 14th and May 28th public hearings with hopeful adoption on June 11th. No council member currently sitting in office will lose their seat by going through this process. Each council member will finish their respective terms. And we'll start the process if council approves this in the 2024 election, and then followed by 2026 and every 2 years thereafter. So in this process, we must follow the federal laws. We're attempting to create voting districts in the city of Chowchilla of equal population. The city has an option of moving to 5 districts since you have 5 council members already, or you can move to 4 districts and having an at-large mayor. I've been able to work with jurisdictions, city jurisdictions that is, that have done either or. With respect to equal population, in the city of Chowchilla, if you went to 5 districts, we would want to try to get 2,685 residents per district. The federal courts have expressed that we can go beyond 10% deviation with that number. So it doesn't have to be specifically or precisely 2,685 residents within those 5 districts. If you went to 4 districts and a directly elected or at-large elected mayor, now it increases based on simple math. The 4 districts the target would be 3,357. Additionally, we use census blocks to draw these districts, whether it's going to be 5 or 4. And the census blocks are really quite different in each one. While you might see some that are squares, they might or likely have different population numbers embedded in those census blocks. And I'll show you examples here soon. We must follow the Federal Voting Rights Act, and we can have no racial gerrymandering. Then we shift to California's criteria. And to the extent possible, we want, in prioritized order, we want our districts to be geographically contiguous. And NDC will do that for you and make sure that you will see drafts that respect that, and all the other things that are listed here, including attempting not to divide neighborhoods or communities of interest, and to have easily identifiable boundaries. And then, as we know, in Central California with Highway 99, it creates a nice, easily identifiable boundary, or canals, or some of these roads in the rural areas of Central California. And then we want our our districts to be compact. There is a California prohibition that says that we shall not adopt election district boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent political candidate or political party. And so we use, when we draw up these districts, we have to use the census data, and we use the 2020 census data, even though it's we're almost halfway through 2024. And the data yielded 13,426. That does not include the prison population. The state did a prisoner adjustment for each jurisdiction, and any inmate that was incarcerated, their residence went back to their home is from their previous residence before they were incarcerated. So the city of Chowchilla was 13,426. We have a breakdown of the various Hispanic, Latino, non-Hispanic, white, etc. That's total population. And then we go down here to citizen voting age population, and that's what we're really going to look at when we draw districts, whether or not we are increasing the voting strength of the protected class. And in this case, it would be the Latino or Hispanic protected class. And also we would look at non-Hispanic, Black, and Asian American Pacific Islanders, since they have 10% and 6% respectively, based on citizen voting age population from the 2020 census. So we have a lot of data that we use. Each draft map that you receive will have a table like this. It'll break down each district, whether it's 5 or 4 districts. It'll show you what the breakdown is, etc. So we're looking at the where the Latino citizen voting age population resided during the 2020 census. Again, we're looking at 2020 census. And then you can see the legend down below. If it's purple, that means that inside that census block, there's 0 to 25% Latino citizen voting age population living within that census block. So you can see, if you're looking at between Chowchilla Boulevard and Highway 99, you have this huge area. That's one census block, basically. And it says there's basically 0 to 25%. And I can imagine, being a former resident of Central California, there's probably not a whole lot of people living right there. Same applies when you look north of the golf course area. It's just rural area. But we have to respect the number of individuals who might be living in there, in this case, the Latino citizen voting age population. Conversely, when we look at African American and Asian American citizen voting age population, you can see that on the right-hand side, African Americans are not really geographically concentrated within the city. So, as part of the public hearing, we're hoping to hear from the public who are present. And thank you, by the way, to those individuals who did submit via email. I do have your information, and we will use that in informing the drafting of maps. So how do you describe or name the area you live? What are its geographic boundaries, and what other neighborhoods are there? And, you know, we use, like I said, we use easily identifiable boundaries. Some people might use school attendance zones in larger communities, parks, schools, etc. Just some ideas. We have a definition of communities of interest. It's a population that shares common or social or economic interests that should be included within a single district for the purposes of its effective and fair representation. So what do you consider your neighborhood? What are your communities of interest? And again, I'd like to thank those individuals who've already submitted information via email and the first public hearing as well. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to entertain any questions council might have. And other than that, I'll see you next time.
I do have a question. When I look at this, you know, our Palestinian friends have been to the meetings, and they're obviously a part of this community, but this is going to completely take away their voice in this town unless they all live on the same street. They're absolutely not going to have any voice in what happens here by districting. Isn't that correct?
Well, we have to use the 2020 census for our data. And the particular group you just mentioned, is actually listed under non-Hispanic white from the 2020. That's going to change in 2030, however. I believe it's going to be Middle Eastern, Northern Africa will be a category that will be added to the census. But at this point, we have to use the 2020 data, 2020 census data, that is, in drawing drafts. Now, that said, if there are individuals, and I believe we did receive some information today, where individuals can tell us where those areas are, and that will help inform in the drafting of maps that will come before you.
But
Additionally, we had an individual from last meeting who submitted something to council, and also in with that had submitted a draft map. We were able to draw that map, and we actually were able to precisely match the numbers that the author of that particular, or authors of that map provided for you. So it's not out of the question, and I'm sorry, I'm just belaboring the question as well. It's not out of the question that we will have members of the community submit maps. They can submit a map on a napkin, and we'll do our best to represent it. Just like and if I have questions, I'll reach out to the author to make sure that I'm representing what it is that they submitted.
We have any comments from the public?
I do have one hand raised. That'd be for Scott. You should be able to speak now.
Hi, how are you? I'm the attorney that petitioned you to file to move to district elections on behalf of LULAC and Latino electors who are protected by the California Voting Rights Act. I really appreciate that presentation. And one of the highlights is that 52% of the population of your city is Latino, but only 36% of the registered voters or the eligible voters, only 27% of those that vote in presidential elections, and only 24% of those that vote in gubernatorial elections. District elections are going to change that. When people have neighbors who knock on their door and say why it's important to vote, they turn out and vote. And this is true of all immigrant communities, and the Palestinian or Middle Eastern community is very important and is definitely a community of interest to the extent that it can be geographically identified. And in that case, it will increase their ability to aggregate their votes effectively and on an equal basis. I do want to urge the council to post both this presentation and the emails you receive on a redistricting page, so there can be some transparency and a real dialogue among your community that will enhance this process. I also hope you'll consider having a hearing, a map hearing. Those are the ones that get a little more attention, maybe with some amenities like coffee and donuts at a time and place that's convenient for the community, maybe even on a weekend. And I think you'll get a lot of valuable feedback that way. I'm not the attorney that got those massive awards that were on that page. I've worked with a number of councils, and oftentimes our map is selected, or we collaborate with NDC, as we did in Santa Clarita, and come up with something that really benefits all the community. And I hope we can work on that basis going forward. So I thank you very much, and I wish you well in this project.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Have another question or comment from Lefty. Should be able to speak now.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to ask if you are planning on reading into record what Ahlam emailed you guys.
That will be during the public hearing. We haven't opened the public hearing quite yet. That's the next item.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so when we get those maps, we're gonna get them for 5 districts and 4 and 1, correct?
You're asking the demographer that?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll make sure of that. We'll make
Okay.
sure the council has options.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, we're gonna go ahead to section 4, public hearings. I would like to open up the public hearing. A public hearing regarding demographic process to draw district boundaries. Second public hearing to gather community input regarding composition of districts and boundaries. Mrs. Lerner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is the hearing that I referenced prior to the presentation from Jeff Tilton of NDC. So you've now opened the public hearing. I do want to note for the record that my colleague Ryan Tung is here if council has some additional questions. And then also Joanne has a number of written public comments to read into the record as well, but I recommend starting with any members present in chambers, then online, and then Joanne can read her comments.
Okay. Anybody from the audience?
Yep, we have a question or comment from Scott Rafferty. You can go ahead and speak now.
Thank you. Can you hear me? I think that.
Yes.
So I do want to add one concern about the prospect of moving to a mayor or to an elected mayor. That would be unusual and not necessarily consistent with the California Voting Rights Act. So we'd want to understand what the basis for doing this was. A mayor, of course, is elected at large. So it's generally understood that when you go through a transition, there's some burden of proving that the mayor should continue to be elected at large. And that would involve showing that there's a community desire to have different skill set, different function for that official, and also that it doesn't impair the ability to create meaningful districts. So if we had a situation where there could be a majority, or perhaps 2 or 3 majority Latino districts with 5 districts, but not with 4, that would be problematic. I understand this process has me going first. I hope that any member of the community that wants to interact in any way will try to support. My email and telephone number are on the letter, and we hope this is a real conversation and that we can have as much information and get it posted as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, we have a question or comment from Jacob Sandoval. You can go ahead and speak now.
Good afternoon. My name is Jacob Sandoval. I'm the State Director for California LULAC. A lot of community folks have been reaching out to me, and one of the big requests they've been asking, especially for these hearings, is especially when the maps come out, is having them later in the evening. Lots of folks, unfortunately, because of their work schedules, don't get off of work till 5. And this is a big historical step within the city of Chowchilla. So I encourage, hopefully on the future hearing, especially when the maps come out, in order to have more community engagement, to try to hold the hearing or the map selection later in the evening or on a weekend. And then, of course, have food if people are coming from work and they want to participate around 6 to 6:30. That's been a big concern as why some community folks are unable to make it always to the hearing to make public comments. But we thank you for your consideration.
Did he say food?
Yes.
Food, like a steak dinner? Maybe just steak dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Anybody else have any comments?
Yeah, we have one more from Josue Diaz. You can go ahead and speak now.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make, again, a public statement for 5 voting districts. I strongly believe that 4 voting districts would dilute the influence of certain protected populations. and it would break up communities of interest simply to meet population thresholds. So I just want to voice my support for 5 voting districts.
Could you speak a little more clearly? I wasn't able to understand you.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make a statement in support of 5 voting districts. I strongly believe that 4 voting districts would be a dilution of the influence of certain protected communities, and also it would break up communities of interest. So I strongly support 5 districts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Jose, are you a resident of Chowchilla? Can I get your address, please?
I won't state my address for the record, but yes, I am a resident.
Thank you so much.
Joanne has a number of comments received via email that she can read into the record.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, so this one's from Vanessa Navarro. She says, "Thank you for moving to council districts. I think this is desperately needed in our community. I strongly support protecting the presidential streets as one community of interest. Many of us who live in this neighborhood associate together, share similar blue-collar livelihoods, and wish to be represented by a councilman that lives in our neighborhood. I strongly support there being 5 council districts, not 4. Our town may be small, but for too long, certain groups of people have had no representation or poor representation. That is not a criticism of the current council, but an observation of how Chowchilla has operated for years. For too long, it has been about who you know. The recent issue with taco truck vendors was just a glimpse of how those who are blue-collar, hardworking Latinos were forgotten about. Thank you." The next one's from Hugo Chavez. "Dear council members, I was delighted to learn that the city is moving to district-based elections. I look forward to our city council reflecting the diversity of our community, not just from an ethnic standpoint, but from geographic and socioeconomic perspectives as well. I was troubled to hear that the city is considering going to 4 districts instead of 5. This stinks of an incumbent protection scheme and will only serve to dilute the voting power of people of color and maintain the stranglehold that the more affluent people have on our community. Numerous council members have expressed support for 4 districts in the community as recently as this last weekend, which leads me to believe that the council has engaged in conversations about this topic, which is not only a Brown Act violation, but is a disservice to this process that is meant to a public, transparent, and community-oriented process. Instead, the council should respect the California Voting Rights Act and honor the people of this community by proceeding toward a 5-district plan that protects the most critical community of interest in Chowchilla, the historic downtown area from Front Street to 15th and Ventura to Mariposa. This community of interest is large enough to be represented by 2 council members and should not be split up into more than 2 districts. And as a resident of the Calusa Apartments, this is my request. Finally, it is imperative that any idea of splitting the Green Hills area into more than 1 district be abandoned from the onset. It is no secret that 4 of the current council members hail from the Green Hills area and to split Green Hills into more than 1 district is an attempt to violate current law in favor of incumbents. And he signed it Hugo Chapa. The next one's from Rosalinda Alvarado. "I live on Alameda, and I think it is important that the old part of town is kept whole when drawing council maps. As a hardworking single mother, I want to see someone like me on the council. The old part of town with county named and number named streets has been here the longest and deserves to be kept whole. Maybe 1 district on the north side of downtown and 1 on the south side of downtown where I live. There is no reason that you cannot make the old part of town 2 of the 5 districts. This only seems fair. Please do not include us in a district that includes Green Hills or the newer area off Santa Cruz. Many of us in the old part of town already feel forgotten about. Si se puede, Rosie Alvarado." Josue Diaz submitted Do you want to describe what it is? Would you like to describe what he submitted, the packet?
So you're
from last
gonna
week?
read his statement and just for the record, even though he already spoke, the statement being submitted is on behalf of 40 other individuals. So I recommend it still be read. So go ahead and read that along with the names of all the individuals.
Okay, perfect. In regard to the second public hearing regarding drawing of the districts and defining communities of interest, we submit to the council full support for the following. 1, support for 5 voting districts. 2, defining the following neighborhoods as a community of interest for purposes of protecting in the districting process. The neighborhoods bound by Front Street to the east, 15th on the west, Ventura Street on the north, and Mariposa Street on the south, including the neighborhoods bound by Washington Road, 15th Street, and Defender Street, should be regarded as a singular community of interest and whose representation on a new council should not be diluted or diminished. This community shares commonality in ethnic makeup, socioeconomic status, infrastructure, and security needs, among others. This community has a strong Latino presence. The city's 3 carnicerias are located here, as well as the city's only mobile food truck, and all but one of the Latino churches are in this neighborhood. This neighborhood is also home to the city's 2 fruterias and the city's only panaderia, all mainstays of a Latino community. And this was signed, or this is from Josue Diaz and signed by Kimberlyn Cortez, Dolmy Argueta, Justice Padilla, Johnny Tamillo, Helen Mendez, Felipe Vargas, Yesenia Correa, Filberto Correa, Maria Idalia Correa, Felipe Correa, Maribel Contreras, Baldemar Contreras, Mirtha Torres, Bomaro Contreras, Eduardo Contreras, Guadalupe Barajas, Catalina Lopez, Eduardo Gonzalez, Daniela Avalos, Sergio Paz, Veronica Flores, Jan Pfeiffer, Jocelyn Perez, Lina Guadalupe Yanez, Ernestina Ceja, Castro Ceja, Dioselina, Juliana Martinez, Luis Barajas, Stacy Shulin, David Shulin, Sheila Cook, Cecilia Gonzalez, Luis Lopez, Ramiro Sanchez, Victor Maldonado, Daniel Ramirez, Mario Talavera, Versi Alba Ramirez, Apolinar Chavez, Marcos Chavez, Daisy M. Chavez, Edgar Ajtun, Angela Santamaria, Rudy Santamaria, and Jennifer Ortega. This next submission is from Alam Ashik. In regards to the public hearing on the drawing of districts and defining communities of interest, we submit to the council full support for the following. 1 key factor in ensuring equitable representation in the drawing of district boundaries is that it accurately reflects the demographics and interests of the communities they serve. I urge you to prioritize the fair representation of the Arab American community as you draw district lines and to consider their interests alongside those of other communities. We would like to define the following neighborhoods, which include at least 30 Arab American households, as a community of interest for purposes of protecting the districting process. This includes the neighborhoods bound by the north of Ventura Avenue and west of Gilway, 15th Street, which includes Washington Road, Santa Cruz Boulevard, and Cottonwood Drive. This area should be regarded as a singular community of interest. The community shares commonality in ethnic makeup, socioeconomic status, language, and infrastructure. We support 5 district boundaries based on being able to fairly divide the city with proper representation. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And they submitted maps, and they'll be posted on our website. And the final one is from Roberto Zapata. Dear Chowchilla City Council, I am writing to express my full support for the establishment of 5 district voting districts in Chowchilla. Additionally, I would like to submit for public consideration the following delineations of communities of interest within our city. Community of Interest 1, the historic downtown. This community encompasses the area bound roughly by Front Street to the east, 15th to the west, Ventura Street to the north, and Mariposa Street to the south. It also includes the V-shaped block bound by 15th Street, Washington Road, and Defender Street. These neighborhoods represent some of Chowchilla's earliest housing developments, constructed from early 1900s through the 1960s, with infrastructure of similar vintage. Residents share commonalities in infrastructure needs, socioeconomic status, and ethnic makeup, among other factors. This community of interest has a population significant enough to potentially constitute 2 districts in a 5-district map, as depicted by light blue and dark blue shading on the accompanying map. Community of interest 2, Presidential Streets, bound by 15th Street to the east, Palm Parkway and Jefferson Streets to the west, Robertson Boulevard to the north, and Truman Drive to the south. These neighborhoods form a cohesive community. Residents share similarities in the age of homes and infrastructure, as well as socioeconomic status and ethnic composition, among other characteristics. This community is represented by the color maroon on the provided map. Community of Interest 3, Green Hills, primarily located within the Pheasant Run development east of Highway 99 and south of Robertson Boulevard. These neighborhoods share commonalities in the age of homes, infrastructure, socioeconomic status, and ethnic makeup. While this community may not independently meet the population threshold for a district, it could encompass other parts of the city to achieve the required population size. However, care must be taken to avoid incorporating parts of the historic downtown neighborhoods into the resulting district. The shaded green area on the sample map illustrates this community of interest. Community of interest number 4, north of Ventura. Found primarily north of Ventura Avenue, bounded by Ash Slough and extending west along Howell Road toward Cottonwood Drive, these neighborhoods share similarities in socioeconomic status, ethnic makeup, and the age of infrastructure. This community is represented by the color yellow in the accompanying map. Enclosed with this letter, you will find a map and accompanying statistics prepared by myself, Roberto Zapata, reflecting our proposed definitions of these communities of interest. We believe that these delineations accurately capture the unique characteristics and commonalities among Chowchillah's neighborhoods, ensuring fair and equitable representation for all residents. Thank you for considering our input as you undertake this important process of districting. And that's it.
So if there aren't any more, you can close the public hearing.
Okay. Any more? Okay. All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And we will move to section 5, deferred business, nothing. New business, section 6. Consideration and adoption of a city council resolution awarding the construction contract for Chowchilla Boulevard rehabilitation and water main extension project to Cal Valley Construction in the amount of $2,564,896, authorizing the city administrator or designee to execute all related documents thereto and amending the fiscal year 23-24 city budget. Mr. Rogers.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. As stated, this is toward a construction contract to Cal Valley Construction for the rehabilitation of 1.5 miles of Chowchilla Boulevard and extension of water mains over the Berenda Slough. We received 8 bids for the project. Cal Valley came in the lowest and was responsible and responsive. And for that recommendation, we recommend award. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Any questions from the public? Council?
Nope.
Looking for a motion.
Move to approve.
I will second.
Got a first and a second. Get a roll call?
Yes, Mr. Trost?
Yes.
Mr. Berrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
And Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to announcements. May 2nd, National Day of Prayer event at Veterans Memorial Park at 10 a.m. May 8th through the 11th is Chowchilla Madera County Fair, Chowchilla Fairgrounds. May 14th, City Council meeting here at City Hall. And May 15th, Planning Commission meeting has been canceled. And with that, I adjourn the meeting.